There is none. No objection. I call the Honourable Member Chris Hipkins.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. And I am very happy to take a call on this. Oh, sorry, Mr. We're going to
another point of order. The Honourable Member Winston Peters.
I seek leave of the House to table a letter from a constituent in support of this bill, and it's dated the 30th of the 9th, 2012, to my colleague, Mr. Williams, MP.
Any objection to that course of action being taken? There is none. I call the Honourable Member Chris Hipkins.
Very good. I think they're done for now. Okay, that's good. Mr. Speaker, very happy to take a call on the Local Government Council-controlled Organisations Bill. And can I say it's not a great day for openness and transparency in the House of Parliament today. Two bills in a row that are designed, put forward by the opposition, designed to increase transparency, increase the flow of information to the public about the activities which they have an interest in as taxpayers, both being voted down by the government. First, the changes to the Ombudsman's Act, which would have allowed the Ombudsman to charge for investigations. And of course we know that the majority of the investigations we'd be talking about under that would be Official Information Act investigations, potentially actually even some of the investigations that they could be conducting under this bill if it were passed. Because the Ombudsman could end up investigating some of these things if this bill were passed. So there's a great irony there. They're voting against more transparency and democracy twice in the House tonight, and I think that's very, very disappointing. Why? I haven't heard anyone from the government, and I accept that there was no auto-cue here earlier on, so when Maggie Barry gave us her one-sentence speech, that could easily be explained by the absence of an auto-cue. And it's actually the best speech she's given in the time that she's been in Parliament. But I do want to say I am disappointed that no national member has actually stood up and given a reasonable explanation for why ports shouldn't be the subject to the Official Information Act. It's actually quite a simple issue. Why should it be that the Official Information Act can apply to schools, it can apply to any range of government entities, but not ports, which are fully owned, or council-controlled organisations fully owned by the council? Why wouldn't it apply to them? I can't actually understand. There's no sort of justifiable reason for that. So what we're talking about here is its openness and transparency around ports, and I don't think it's unreasonable for the government to at least send this bill to a select committee to give some explanation of why they're voting against it. So if I turn to the purpose of the bill for a moment, the bill reverses the exclusion of ports companies and their subsidiaries from the definition of council-controlled organisations in the Local Government Act 2002. It will have the effect of applying normal public accountabilities to port companies, including the application of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, the requirements to act as a good employer, and I'll come back to those in a moment, and the requirements to exhibit a sense of social and environmental responsibility by having regard to the interests of the community in which they operate. And again, I come back to the point, who could possibly argue that a port should not be required to do those things? A port should act as a good employer. And we as a parliament have defined what a good employer is. So there are requirements in the legislation for what a good employer needs to do. So why is it that we would object to the government would object to passing a law that would require ports to act in that way? It extends to them the requirement to exhibit a sense of social and environmental responsibility. So let's talk about those things for a moment. The port is quite a large employer, so the social responsibility element comes in quite significantly. There are huge environmental issues with the operations of ports. Not unreasonable for us to expect that the port would operate with some sense of environmental responsibility, and by having regard to the interests of the community in which they operate. Again, these are large entities owned by local authorities, and of course they should have regard to the community, to the interests of the communities in which they operate. This is actually a very sensible bill, and I'm absolutely staggered that not only are the government not voting in favour of it, they're not actually willing to articulate their reasons for not voting in favour of it. And I think that that suggests a level of contempt for the concepts of openness and transparency in this House that I think the New Zealand public should rightly find incredibly disappointing. 2 strikes today against a more open government. Voting down more powers for the Ombudsman to allow them to clear the huge backlog of investigations that have accumulated under this national government. And of course we know the reason for that, because they've shut down the flow of information. They're not willing to stand up and be accountable for the decisions that they're making. They're not willing to release information. That's disgraceful. And now they're voting against this as well, and that's disgraceful too.
Point of order. Right Honourable Winston Peters.
I seek leave to table a list of council-controlled organisations from the Whangarei District Council that would be subject to this bill.
Any objection to that course of action being taken? There is none. I call the Honourable Member. Point of order, the Honourable Member Andrew Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek leave to table a statement of intent from the Auckland Waterfront Development Agency as an example of an official document that should be subject to the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act, but is presently
Any objection to that course of action being taken? There is.
Oh, that's...
Order. Call the Honourable Member Darian Fenton to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, first of all,